I'm Michael Stutz, and I first met Allen Ginsberg long ago when I was a teenager. I was very lucky to meet actually Bill Burroughs, Ginsberg, Ferlinghetti, Gary Snyder, Gregory Corso, Charlie Plumell, just basically the whole Beat generation, and David Amram, of course. And the reason that happened, the reason why I chased after all of them is for my admiration, love, and intellectual brotherhood with the Beat who died long before I was born, Jack Kerouac. And my last novel is Circuits of the Wind. It's the story of the Net generation. And the hero of this book, Ray Valentine, he loves the Beat generation as much as I do. And there's a few Beat cameos in this book. It's a big book. It's in 3 volumes. And I thought I'd read a page from each volume. So. But this began for Ray an avid interest in older men of the past, the great men, the wild men who had become great figureheads. They took the place of cartoons and fables and fathers and held the same kind of interest that young boys have in comic book superheroes. They were bigger than the rest and rose above the nameless common man whose throats were mute and whose tongues could not utter any name. These old men, mostly dead and incredibly gone, men whom boys 4 years younger, now beginning their high school years, would only look to find reasons to laugh at with their frumpy, outdated looks, now suddenly took on a great appeal and were a source of endless inspiration. Their stupendous deeds and charmed lives were all their envies. It was John Cage, Frank Lloyd Wright, Dr. John Lilly, M.D., R. Buckminster Fuller, the Beatniks who'd walked the planet 3 decades past. Even a renegade author like Jack Dulois would be passed up in the halls of freshman high school like a dud of a social studies teacher in his tan chinos and plaid Oxford, but now he was seen with great fervor. All the details of his life were taken in and memorized and dwelled upon with relish. Suddenly, black and white photographs of a distant past became acceptable, and views into those worlds were now intriguing. All of these men that Ray was learning about now were outlaws in their own way. Outsiders to a rigid, uptight world that was wrong and that was obstinately didn't see. And these great men, with their heroic, superhuman accomplishments, became his guides and role models. Ray himself, in the secret idols of his waking life, was flooded with passionate tides and urgencies that sang out with songs from the voices of all these figures, the repercussions of their deeds, and the lost footfalls of their waking lives that had taken on a new birth in all this rich and heady legend. He traced them, thought continuously of them, looked at life and his own story and situations in their terms, grew more impassioned daily, and knew that of himself there was a tremendous well inside. He had to learn to tap it, to find the inner legend and to get it out. He had to find the way. He sought an answer and knew that in the end he had not to be only one of those great men, but something even greater. And certainly he felt that he was now part of a definable group who'd made a historic convergence, and he felt that they were in the prime of their being, that they'd gotten up on stage and the spotlight had been just flicked on, its beam shone down hotly, and that he only had to build up the raw courage and the nerve to walk up to the microphone and speak, to say that they were ready, and that this alone would be enough to make the moment live forever. That generation that he was part of and who were now presently pushed upon the stage, they also had a name. They called it Generation X. The first generation whose expectations were lower than their parents', Judy would often say, proclaiming it as some kind of gospel of the hour, just as he imagined that they were all declaring it in those very words wide across the land. He liked to hear it from her lips because it made him feel more connected to the others that were surely out there at this instant and had been blessed with revelation too. It was verily the prevailing wind, so of course their expectations sagged. As a generation, they really hadn't any. They had the shared sentiment of their childhoods, yes, the searings of those distant memories, and they lived in the ironic contrast between the happy charms of then and the terrifying emptiness of now. But something great had happened in between, and something great had gone away. Culturally, they were in a panic field, a dead zone. There was nothing good ahead. Presently, they could enjoy the blinding procession of imported gadgetry, outrageous imagery, and declining social mores. All of that was instantly available to every one of them, and such indulgences were constantly encouraged. Most of them had no idea that none of that, in essence, was radically new or even good. It was all just the result of a civilization gone off track, one that was quickly losing itself, as had already happened 1,000 times before. Well, they'd been given that, but no ticket to a living future. The American Heights were obviously now in the past, tucked away somewhere in the background scenery of old Humphrey Bogart films, and those square photographs with white frilled trim around the edges, month and year noted sideways in the border. It'd been mothballed, somehow lost among the failing years, and was slipping steadily away. According to this unspoken but universally acknowledged view, it was pretty much all over now. They'd already fallen off the edge, and were only coasting on a downhill ride into the dark. Yeah! All right, Raymond was an awkward teenager now, and the bleat of popular music snared him and held him to its enormous breast. It purported to have an answer, and he took faith. Soon the radio became a close companion to his waking self. He listened to the music while on the computer. He explored both the AM and FM bands, even listened to talk radio programs, and he brought a cassette Walkman with a set of headphones to school to help endure the tabled lineup of the morning study hall, everyone sleeping with their heads atop their mounted canvas duffel bags. Late on a cold Sunday, when night had settled in around them like a cage, he heard on one talk station a man named Murray Solomon, whom he determined was an old, important figure in the sweeping tides of America's 1960s. He was growling over the airwaves, telling the program's host about his travails as a young man, about how back then it was the beats, and how the culture had gone quiet until 1968, and then the hippies came, and how he heroically instigated them. This was, he rasped, an 18-year cycle. I got a figure to that. That's how the big changes happen. And it should be happening now. This is the time for something big again. He confidently rasped this message out, and then he quickly heaved, the new generation who are going to be it, they're coming out of high school right now. Who do you think they are? Calmly asked the host. Do you have any idea who they might be? I got my theory, Solomon quickly answered. Technology, computers, that's going to do it. I think those kids now, it'll be the ones with the computers, that's who. With a sharp, haunted chill, Raymond knew that this authority was now speaking about him, the wanderer of the wires, the one who drifted and who saw. He knew that his day would come, was coming quick. It'd be him to be the one to do it. His life contained a legend of all that he had seen and known, and he sought to unlock it and release it, make it come alive. That was what all the wordless days ahead were for. With just the right connections, he would find it. He knew that, and it had been just another meager moment in the sunken spurt of deeper time. It was a single frozen frame of it. There had been a ticking tock. More moments fell.